Okay. So the external auditory meatus comes in and connects to the tympanic membrane. So what you need to know is the boundaries of the external ear, which would be the auricle, laterally and medially, or superficially and deep, and then deep would be the tympanic membrane. The middle ear would be the tympanic membrane, and, which is very hard to see, right down over here would be the, there you go, your pen. It's actually going to be right there, which is going to be the oval window. Okay, put that back where it belongs. There we go. So middle ear is going to be tympanic membrane to the oval window. Inner ear is oval window to actually the cochlea. Those are the three divisions. Once you get past all this and you get into the tympanic membrane, and you should know the ossicles. What connects to the tympanic membrane is going to be the malleus. What connects to the oval window is going to be the stapes. And what's in between? The incus. Okay. Now, once you actually get to the oval window, there's another window right below it, number 16. This is referred to as the round window. All of this connects to the vestibular structure, or the vestibule inside. The vestibule is what separates the semicircular canals from the cochlea. Once you get into this, then you have to, if you set it back in here, you have to determine the semicircular canals. What is the anterior, what's the posterior, what's the lateral? So you've got anterior, posterior, and lateral. Okay? Because remember, we're looking at the lateral side here, the medial side here. The bone that it sits in is the temporal bone. You have the cochlear. They could also ask you about the nerve. So if they point to this nerve, you would say cranial nerve number 8, which is the vestibular cochlear. But if they see there's a separation there and there, make sure that if it's going to the semicircular canals, it's going to be the vestibular portion of the vestibular cochlear, and opposite we're going to the cochlear. They can ask you about this muscle, tensor tympani. They can ask you about the carotid artery. This is the auditory tube, and its function is to
It releases.
drain fluid. What else?
It also has a waxy substance.
It is an equalizing pressure mechanism. So when you go up and down at different altitudes, then it doesn't constantly build up some pressure, so it actually releases. Other than that, that's about it on this particular model. What you cannot see in this model is the smallest muscle in the body, which is the stapedius. On the larger one, you can. Now, also on this one, they could ask you this. They don't use it, but they could. If we separate the cochlea, you have to remember that the cochlea is broken up into functional sections, so that's why they have different colors. So you have the vestibular, the temporal, or the tympanic, and then the blue is the cochlear duct. So you have to know those three ducts that make up one particular section. In the blue is the organ of corte, and the cochlear duct. All right? All right. That's about it on that one. Let's turn it around. Okay. Make sure we save time to review for your special sense quiz. Sure. Do that. I'm not coming in tomorrow. Looks like American Idol or something. This again may be like it's losing its corner. All right. What they can ask you on this is some of the cranial nerves. The way you study this is by knowing the muscles, not by studying the nerves. If you know the muscles and you see that there's a nerve going to it, then you know what nerve is it. So the oculomotor, which is cranial nerve number what? 3, is going to 5 of the 7 muscles. So if I'm looking at the levator palpebral superioris muscle, I know that it's innervated by what? Oculomotor. Okay. But if I'm looking at the lateral rectus muscle, I know it's a totally different cranial nerve. What is it? Abducens. And then the trochlear muscle is what? Superior inferior rectus. Superior inferior oblique. Inferior oblique. All right. So when they're asking you, don't worry about studying all this. It'll drive you crazy. Just because if they point here and here, I'm going to move it because it's unclear. You have to actually put it to where it's actually going to the muscle, so you can see definitely the differences. So let's remove this gently. And we're going to take this off and see if the cornea comes with us. Oh, it does. Yeah. Where am I caught up on? There we go. All right. Put this out here a little bit. So let's just assume that cornea actually is where it should be. So what we'll do is we'll start, let's say we'll start from the optic nerve going in. This white structure that goes around the entire eye, all the way covering the optic nerve, all the way back to the optic chiasm is the sclera. The sclera, as it comes anteriorly, when it goes across the front of the pupil, it becomes the cornea. The cornea is an extension of the sclera. It's just clear. So the lucid portion of the sclera, which they could ask you, is the cornea. Even though it has a different name. Then you have the second layer in, or the middle layer, is called the choroid, and then the retina. But you need to know all three of those names. So you need to know that the sclera is also the fibrous tunic, the choroid is also the vascular tunic, and the retina is also what?
Is it okay that we're videos?
Now there's a slight variation, because as the choroid or vascular tunic comes up here, it attaches to something called the ciliary process. And the ciliary process is what connects to the ciliary muscles, and that's what connects to the suspensitory ligaments that connect to the lens. Okay? Want to go through that again?
Yes.
Make sense? Here's a choroid plexus or the vascular tunic. It connects to the ciliary process, which connects to the suspensitory ligaments that are connected to the ciliary muscles that connect to the lens. All right. The lens is right there. Now, in the actual, it looks like it's part of the sclera here, but really it's part of the cornea, is the canal of Schleff. You have to say it with
That
attitude.
purple dot.
Yeah, just that little purple dot right there. So as,
Oh, I ruined my video.
okay. So this huge area here represents the vitreous humor. Okay, I'm going to remove the vitreous humor and the cornea and put it over here. So the vitreous humor is basically occupying the posterior cavity. So what are the boundaries of the posterior cavity? The retina posteriorly, the lens anteriorly. Have we gone through this a few times?
Yes.
Okay, good. Then in front of the lens, you have all of this, which is the anterior cavity. And the boundaries of the anterior cavity are posteriorly the lens and anteriorly the cornea. Inside the anterior cavity, you have an anterior chamber and a posterior chamber. All right? The boundaries of the posterior chamber of the anterior cavity, the posterior portion is the lens, the anterior portion is the iris. The anterior chamber of the anterior cavity is, posterior border is the iris, anterior border is the cornea. Okay. Everybody
Repeat.
clear on that? Okay. Don't ask me to repeat it. Now on this model you can see there's a yellow structure here with a little depression in the center. Be careful when you're answering your question because the depression is actually the fovea. The yellow area around the fovea is the macula lutea. Now these are where you find the highest concentrations of cones. Cones are for color, rods are for shades of gray. Over here where you have yellow, this is where I don't want you getting confused. This is yellow, but this is also yellow here. But the problem with this, there are no photoreceptors where the optic nerve comes out. So it's black. It's called the optic disc or the blind spot. Don't write down blind spot, write down optic disc.
It's the ones that look like corn on the cob.
The one looks like corn on the cob is the optic nerve, which comes out to the optic disc. Now I'm going to move this back here gently, and we're going to look at this. So now, here's the retina, and when the retina meets this is called the ciliary body. Remember I said the choroid comes to the ciliary process that goes to the ciliary muscles. Well, the purple part of this is the ciliary body. The ciliary body is what goes all the way around the eye. And where the ciliary body meets the retina is called the ora serrata. All right? That's the ora serrata. Let's see, stay. Back to you. Stay. Let's pop this one down. Put them there. Now, this particular model, can't see it, but they could ask you on the iris. The iris has two sets of muscles. Okay, one is a constrictor and one is a dilator. The circular muscle, even though you can't see it, is the constrictor. So circular constriction. Radial muscle makes up the dilator. Now, sometimes in your text they're going to be referred to as the pupillary dilator, pupillary constrictor. But the constrictor is the circular and the dilator is the radial. All right? And of course, therefore, the pupil is the absence of anything. So the pupil only represents the center of the iris. And there you go for this one. I'm going to let everybody put all this back together. Um,